Hello everyone, this is Cherie, and this is week 3 of the Halloween horror films. Starting with The Turn of the Screw. So this one actually is titled The Turn of the Screw, unlike The Innocents, which I watched during week 1. This is in color. It's from 1992 and it stars Patsy Kensit. The interesting thing about this version is it takes place in the 1960s. But it really has the whole creepy feel down. I enjoyed this version and I would recommend it. They did a really good job with a lot of the stuff in this film. So definitely if you want to see a good version of The Turn of the Screw, and you don't want to see the black and white version, The Innocents, seek out this one from 1992. It was a co-production between like the BBC or Britain and France. The next movie I saw was A Bucket of Blood. This is a black and white 1959 Roger Corman production. And Roger Corman is an indie producer, famous indie producer. He helped start the careers of Francis Ford Coppola, James Cameron, Jack Nicholson, Sylvester Stallone. And actually when I lived in LA the first time, I ended up doing an internship at Concord Pictures, which was the name of his company back then. I was a script reader for a brief period of time. So it's kind of like one of those things. You go to Hollywood and you work for Corman. But this is my favorite film of his that I've seen. The screenwriter, in addition to A Bucket of Blood, did Little Shop of Horrors and Death Race 2000. But the reason I love this one so much is it takes place in a bohemian cafe. It's about a busboy who accidentally stumbles into becoming an artist. And he finally gets the respect of all his peers at the cafe. If you've ever seen House of Wax, it's kind of along those lines. I don't want to give too much away. It's very short. It's an hour and 6 minutes. But what I love is the way they show bohemian life and like the pretentious artists and all the, like the health food that they're eating and stuff. And the dialogue in some scenes is just so funny. And also the music. The music has that wonderful beatnik bongos and jazz horns and minimalist kind of soundtrack. But it's so good. It's so well done. And the cinematography is really nice too. So I would definitely recommend checking out A Bucket of Blood. The next film I saw was called Shutter. Not Shutter, but like Shutter, like a camera. And it is a Thai film that was released in 2004. This is the first Thai movie I've ever seen. And it was refreshing to, hear a new language and see different visuals than I've seen before in movies, so I appreciated that. It follows a photographer who has a bit of a sketchy past, and this ghost starts haunting him by appearing in photos that he's taken. It was okay. I think there were some story logic issues I had, and there were a lot of jump scares, where you hear this sting of music right when this creepy image pops up. One scene that I thought was kind of interesting was the character was in the bathroom, public one, and he's smoking a cigarette while he's on the toilet. And I just thought, well, that's an interesting character thing to show, maybe because he's freaked out about all these images. And so then he puts out his cigarette in this little cigarette ashtray that's in the bathroom. So, and there are other butts there. So I'm like, Oh, so in Thailand you smoke while you're on the toilet? I thought that was weird. But anyway, yeah, I wouldn't necessarily recommend this film. There was a remake in 2008 starring Rachel Taylor as the girlfriend of the photographer. I haven't seen that one. I think some people do like that one. But yeah, this... I had my hopes built up for this one because it was on someone's list of top horror films. And I'm not sure which version they were talking about, if they were talking about the 2004 or the 2008, but it just didn't really do it for me as a horror film. I finally rewatched Bram Stoker's Dracula, and I had seen this when this came out in the theaters many years ago, and this is the second time I've seen it now. The opening is so beautiful. It's operatic. It's bold colors and grand emotions and silhouettes and classical operatic music. You know, it's just this great opening. And then you go to England with Winona Ryder and Keanu Reeves. And it's kind of funny. I wonder why English actors weren't cast. It always makes me curious when Americans are cast as British people in big productions, because there are plenty of English actors who could have done the part. But anyway, it was a really beautifully shot film. Francis Ford Coppola. Only thing that I really didn't enjoy was the ending. It just seemed to drag on a little too much. Most horror movies I've been watching have been around an hour and a half. This one was 2 hours and 7 minutes. I don't know exactly what it was, but I just felt like it could have been condensed a little. Could have been sped up a little at the end. Other than that, it wasn't scary for me, but I enjoyed it, and I think you would too. Bram Stoker's Dracula, directed by Francis Ford Coppola. I also saw a Swedish film called Let the Right One In, and this is a horror romance. It's actually about two outcasts who form a friendship. One of them happens to be a vampire, and they are both around 12 years old. It was beautifully shot. There was not a lot of gore, so I would recommend it. And you know, Sweden is so gorgeous. It's funny, there were lots of shots in the snow, and I had just watched this module for one of my classes on Foley work, and they were saying how to do snow. You have regular like playground sand, and then for the crunch of the snow you have bags of cornstarch that you stomp on. And so while they were like running through the snow, all I could think of was, oh, cornstarch, cornstarch, cornstarch. But anyway, it was very well done. It wasn't scary, but a really good film. Let the Right One In. And the final film for this week, I am happy to say, scared me. This one was scary. And I want to thank Tim at work for recommending this. It's called Oculus. And this movie is about a brother and sister battling a haunted mirror. And what I loved was the female protagonist was not passive. In a lot of horror stories, your protagonist is passive and they are just trying to escape from the monster, right? She goes in there with a plan to get this thing that destroyed their family a decade earlier. And it's just beautiful to see. Kudos to the screenwriter director for creating that kind of proactive protagonist in a horror film. I'm not going to tell you anything about it because I want you to watch it. Yeah, that's it for my horror wrap-up for this week, and I will see you again for week number 4.